Welcome. We're glad to have you with us here for our webinar. Thank you for joining us today. Welcome to the ICER Women in Energy webinar for mentors and mentees. This is our 2016 e-mentoring program, and I am delighted to be with you. My name is Kenneth Hill. I am a member of the Tennessee Regulatory Authority, a commissioner in the state of Tennessee, and I'm coming to you today from the beautiful mountains of Northeast Tennessee. Spring is on its way and the allergies are up, and so if my voice sometimes takes a nosedive and doesn't sound like it should, it may be from the allergies that are coming about today. We want to introduce to you in just a moment the four panelists that are going to be discussing the Women in Energy 2016 mentoring program. It's a project that those of you who are on this webinar have signed in for. You've signed up to participate in it. And so you're going to be hearing about experiences in the mentoring program. So you'll hear from mentors. We have two mentors. We have two mentees. And so listen to what they have to say and learn from that. I think that the structure is pretty simple. We're going to have each of our panelists speak to us. They're going to take 8 to 10 minutes each. We won't be debating as the politicians do here in the States in these days of presidential election politics, but we're going to be here to inform and educate and hopefully instill some inspiration for you. So each of our panelists will have 8 to 10 minutes, and then after that 45 minutes is up or so, then we'll have questions, and you have the opportunity of putting in your questions in the chat box and sending them, and I'll do my best. You'll see me hurriedly trying to pin some of them down because they go away rather quickly and you can't keep up. So we'll be trying to do that so that we can have your questions. We think it's important to have those questions from you, and so we'll have that. Plus, we want you to know that it's being recorded, audio recording only, but it's being recorded. So what you're hearing, you can go back and hear again. You can review it if you'd like to do that. And you can access it at the Women in Energy website. Now, before the introductions, I want to talk a little bit about ICER, International Confederation of Energy Regulators. And it's no accident that today we have our webinar on the 8th of March, which is International Women's Day. International Women's Day is a global day in which we take time, hopefully, to look at what has been achieved toward parity and other situations for women, but also look toward the future as well. And that's why Women in Energy was put together by ICER, is to assist women in the workplace. And so it's just one part of the effort that's going on, but it is part of International Women's Day. And Michelle Groves, that I'll introduce in just a moment, said she's already had, this is her 4th participation today in one of all of these events. So she's been really busy, and we are happy to have her with us, and everybody else too. I see that we're having more attendees joining us, so thank you for coming in. We are just getting started, and so we thank you for joining us now. The 3rd year of our ICER mentoring program is this year, and so some of us have been with it from the start, and we're going to continue with it because I think it's very valuable. I mean, this is my opinion. I think it's very valuable, and I think that those who have either been a mentee or a mentor will be happy to talk about the value, and that's part of what we'll be doing today. Now, there have been some great tools that have been developed over the years, including the Mentoring Journal. These webinars, of course, I think are part of the good tools in the bag. And so we encourage you mentor or mentee to take advantage of the tools that are available through ICER and WIE. We have 37 participants this year, 19 mentees, and those females are from across the world. We've got Europe, America, Canada, Australia for the first time, Africa and South America, not Australia, but Africa and America, South America for the first time. And I'm interested to know that we have that now. So we have junior staff up to the commissioner level. We have peer-to-peer pairing at the commissioner level. We have 18 mentors. We have 7 male mentors and 11 female mentors. One mentor has taken on 2 mentees. That's going to be a lot of good work that gets done. And there are a number of senior level executive mentors this time, and so we're happy about that. It is a 12-month program. It runs from the 1st of March through the 28th of February. So let's get to our speakers. Our first speaker is Michelle Groves. Michelle is CEO of the Australian Energy Regulator, and that happens to be in Australia. They put on my notes, so I'm glad to know that. Michelle has been a mentor at home in Australia for many years. She's also been involved with the ICER Women in Energy initiative from its inception in 2013 and has been instrumental in setting up this ICER mentoring program. And for that, we say thank you. She'll tell us about what it's like being a mentor on this e-mentoring program. It's somewhat different than face-to-face mentoring, and so she'll be explaining that, and she will be giving us a lot of good information. I'll go down the list of speakers and then they'll be taking their place. Our second speaker is Elaine Gallagher from Ireland. Hi, Elaine. She's joining us as a first-time mentee, and she'll share what she's wanting to be getting out of the program. Our third speaker is Larkus Pickett. Larkus works in an international role for NARUC. NARUC is our association here in the States for state regulators. It's their federal, we bring them all together. It's a really good organization. And our final speaker is Jocelyn Fraser. She's Senior Advisor, Nova Scotia Utility and Review Board in Canada. Jocelyn knows firsthand the benefit of having a mentor and decided to give back by being a mentor because she's in a senior role now, so thank you, Jocelyn, for doing that. And so she's going to be telling us about that as well. Michelle, it's your turn.
Thank you very much, Kenneth, and happy International Women's Day to everyone out there. Here in Melbourne, we've just about finished our IWDs, just past midnight here. So, but it's been a really great day for me. So, and this is a terrific way to be finishing it off. I can't think of a better day for us to have this webinar than International Women's Day, particularly when you think about the theme for the UN theme for International Women's Day this year. It's 50-50 in 2030. Step it up for gender equality. So I think it's a bit of a call to arms for us, and I think it very much, as Kenneth said, aligns with the aims and objectives of this Women in Energy e-mentoring program. So I guess through this program we hope to assist women, many of you who are hopefully watching and listening tonight. We hope to help you achieve your goals and your career aspirations. I know as a senior leader within my organisation, I know how important it is that women are able to fully participate. We need diverse voices to be able to make the best decisions as regulators. Women should make up 50% of our organisations across all levels. And I think that's a goal we should be working towards. As Kenneth has said, mentoring is a really important tool that can be used by women to help us progress our careers. And I'm really pleased that you've all chosen to participate in this year's program. On a personal note, I know I'm really confident that I would not have got to where I have without the support, encouragement and advice that I've had from mentors and sponsors throughout my career. So I would urge you to seize this opportunity, because I think that it is a really valuable one. A good mentoring relationship is based on mutual respect, good communications and trust. It's going to take a bit of time for you to build this relationship between your mentors and mentees, and it requires commitment and dedication. You know, as we like to say, similarly to many other things, you get out of mentoring program what you're prepared to put into it. So for many of you, a mentoring relationship is something new, and you may be apprehensive and uncertain about how to start. As Kenneth has pointed out, there are a few great resources available to you that provide really useful advice. In particular, I'd remind you of the Women in Energy e-mentoring overview, which I think provides a lot of terrific information and which I'm sure you'll all have, but keep it close to you. And if you're not sure about where you should be going or what the next stage of it should be, refer to the overview. And also, really importantly, I would urge you to utilise the journal template. I also want to remind you that there are people who are really happy to answer your questions or to deal with your queries through Women in Energy. So if you've got any questions or queries, send them through on an email, and I know the Women in Energy Secretariat will send them out to those of us, and we'll be able to help you with some advice. So please utilise all of the resources available to you. Hopefully by now, all the mentors have reached out to their mentees and made contact, or they're going to very soon. It can be really daunting, I know, for mentees to contact your mentor. You may be worried about imposing or taking up too much time in who you perceive as really busy diaries, or you may also just be a bit intimidated by someone's fancy title. So, but I'm here to say don't be. Don't worry about that. All the mentors are really keen to engage with you. I know I'm as excited as my mentee about the opportunities this program provides. I get an enormous amount out of this program as a mentor, and I find it hugely valuable to me. I learn so much from each of my mentees that I mean, it's a real joy and a learning experience for me as well. So I do just want to remind mentees that your mentors are really keen and are really committed to this program. So don't be shy in contacting them or reaching out and making contact. As I mentioned before, I would urge you to use the journal. Even if you've actually never used one before, experiment a bit here. I would really encourage you to do that. I think the structure of keeping a journal can really enhance the mentoring process. It keeps a record of what you've talked about, what you've committed to and worked on, and it can, when you go back and look, you can see how far you have come. I mean, it is a really helpful document. I'd also really urge mentees to take a bit of time to think about your objectives and expectations and to discuss those honestly with your mentor. Also take the time, maybe even the first 1 or 2 meetings, to get to know your mentor and for your mentors to get to know your mentee, to understand the type of system they work in. Don't make assumptions. I think that one of the truly terrific things about this program is the opportunity to bring people together from across the world. I mean, it's really exciting, and I don't think there are many programs that have that capacity. So we're really lucky in that sense. But that also can pose a few challenges around finding common shared understanding. So take some time at the beginning. I'd really suggest to try and develop that understanding so that you know, you can facilitate communications through your year. I would urge you to use all the opportunities that technology now presents for us to be able to come together. I certainly have found that being able to meet with my mentee over Skype or some other video system can build relationships really fast. I mean, we've got terrific opportunities through that. While I won't often get the opportunity to ever meet my mentees face to face, not many of you are travelling through Australia, I do feel I really get to know people in a lot more, a lot faster and a lot closer by using things like Skype. So I have found that really terrific. And finally, what I would really want people to do is to have fun, to be curious and to really enjoy participating in the 2016 e-mentoring program. And I look forward to having all of you join the over 100 alumni that we have from the program from over the past 2 years. And I really look forward to being able to hearing back for our mid-program check-in how people are doing. So happy to answer questions at the end, Kenneth, but I think I'll throw it over back to you and maybe you can bring in our next speaker.
Very good, Michelle. Thank you. I've got a couple of questions for you, so we'll hold those until a little bit later. Elaine, you've come back to be with us, and we're ready to have you talk with us.
Excellent. Thank you, Kenneth. There is, sorry, I'll adjust my screen. There's an Irish proverb that says, Ersca achela awar nadini, which means that we are shielded from the sun by each other, essentially. So we rely on each other for shelter. And I suppose we work in the shadow of our friends, our neighbours, and I suppose our colleagues at work. So just to thank you, Kenneth, for your words of introduction, and also for the opportunity to take part in this seminar on International Women's Day, and also to take part in the Women in Energy program. I think for me, this program sort of encapsulates what the Irish proverb says, because we all work in the shadow of colleagues in energy law, in regulation and policy, and we're trying to provide better and to help each other to shine a little brighter. My name is Elaine Gallagher. I'm a solicitor by training. I worked for 5 years in private practice. I worked for a number of years in an energy policy think tank, and then took up a position here at the Irish regulator, the CER. And I suppose my career has taken many twists and turns, but the one constant has been energy policy and energy law. And I remember as a very young lawyer being overwhelmed by this industry because of how technical it could be. I felt like I needed a background in economics and in engineering as well as law. But as a young lawyer, a senior associate at my firm took me aside and she said, Elaine, listen, look at the big picture. Always ask what you want to achieve and never be afraid to ask questions so you can understand the detail. And I think that has stood me in good stead, and it meant that I could learn more and faster just by asking questions. And towards the end of 2009, there was obviously a dive in the world economy, and that meant that I had to somehow reinvent myself or consider broadening my experience. And I found a job in Cape Town with Sustainable Energy Africa. And my role required me to interact quite a bit with, I suppose, regional and local governments. And I became very aware that I didn't have an African voice. And I had to learn to listen intently and to walk in someone else's shoes in order even to consider approaching solutions. And my boss, Peter, she's someone that I can say she always lived with integrity. And she installed into her colleagues at work the importance of having an inclusive environment where everyone felt free to voice their opinions, but always in a respectful way. And that has been something that has also stood to me. When I returned to Ireland, I found that I needed to develop new skills that were in the heart of the Depression. And I interviewed for a job in a think tank, and I was successful. And my boss told me that I needed to focus on building network of contacts and to foster business relationships. I also had to become a voracious reader and to make my opinions heard. And many years later, I joined a public speaking organization to improve my public speaking skills. And a number of years later, I'm still in that same organization. And I won the UK and Ireland Public Speaking Evaluation Championship in 2015. And that focuses on giving effective feedback to speakers. So I suppose now I work in energy markets at the Irish regulator, the CER, and we're tasked with implementing the European target model. So essentially it's a dramatic market change. It involves developing a suitable regulatory and governance framework to bring about the changes and also ongoing compliance. And I regularly participate in ICER meetings on network code development. And I'm also the company secretary for the SEM committee, which is the decision-making body for wholesale electricity in Ireland and Northern Ireland. And I suppose having benefited so much from so many magnificent mentors in my life, when I saw the ICER Women in Energy Mentoring Program, I thought, I want to be a part of it, and I want to be a part of it as a mentee. And I suppose this was for two reasons, and that's firstly, every step of my career, I have been lucky enough to be guided by so many wonderful women and men. And I'm not through learning yet, so this was another opportunity to grow. And second of all, I felt like gaining more perspectives in your professional life, it helps you contribute more effectively to help others. And for that reason, I also wanted to take part, so I could take those nuggets of gold and pass them on and help other women. Being a mentee, it's not a one-way process. We must bring another perspective to the table, but always in a spirit of openness and eagerness to learn. And we must also help other people because, as I said before, we work in each other's shadow. So if I had any words of wisdom for mentees, I suppose that it's an ABC guide, and it's ask questions. If you don't ask, the answer is always no. Secondly, be proactive. Take the advice you receive and apply it in your life. And then check your compass. We're all the captain of our own ships. We all steer our own courses, but we have to decide where we want to go. And we live and we work in the shadow of each other. So I think with the help of this program and with each other's help, we can all shine a little bit more brightly. So thank you, Kenneth.
Well, thank you, Elaine. You answered my questions that I had for you already. I'll think of some more, I'm sure.
Okay.
But it seems to me that you have been mentored widely. You've been a mentee either informally or formally. So you've got a very good perspective. Thank you so much for that. Well, we go from Elaine in Ireland to Larkus in North America, in Washington, D.C., if I have it correctly. Is that correct, Larkus?
Yes.
So you're in the capital. We're going to ask Larkus to talk to us about her expectations from the perspective of a mentee. And in particular, Larkus, what do you see the mentor's role as the mentor will be working with you?
Thank you, Kenneth, and thank you, Elaine and Michelle, for your remarks. And I just want to thank also, before I get started, I just want to thank the organizers of this event and also all of you that are involved in running this mentorship program. I'm really looking forward to getting involved this year. My name is Larkus Pickett, and I am a program officer with the National Association of Regulatory Utility Commissioners, also known as NARUC. And I've been working at NARUC for almost 2 years, managing partnerships in the East Africa region, primarily in Ethiopia. And prior to that, I worked on Capitol Hill. And my start and evolution in the energy sector actually stems from a very personal experience. I was a Peace Corps volunteer in Guinea in West Africa and also spent some time in Malawi. And for almost 2 years, I lived in a very remote area. I didn't have running water. I didn't have electricity. And it became very apparent very quickly what some of the negative social and economic impacts are when you don't have access to electricity. The things that we do so easily with the flip of a switch or a push of a button had now turned into very long and arduous tasks. And a lot of times people's health was compromised along the way. And so prior to my experience in the Peace Corps, I had already determined that I wanted to target my career towards just serving others. But in my time in the Peace Corps is where I decided to focus primarily on energy and environmental issues and pursue a career in which I was able to just support others to make sure that they had access to safe water and sanitation as well as energy resources, the basic necessities that we all have here. And so I've been very blessed to be able to see things from the ground, and also to see things at the policy level as well. And currently in my current role, I work in capacity building, facilitate capacity building for energy regulators in the East Africa region. Similar to Elaine, I think that these things that I've experienced have definitely been the inspiration behind why I do what I do. But I think along the way, as Elaine was saying, the things that have impacted me the most are the people that I've met along the way that have walked along with me on this journey. And this includes my professors, my students that I taught, my colleagues, and all of them have taught me very valuable lessons along the way. So now that I gave you guys a little bit about my background, I'll talk more so about some of the things that I expect or anticipate through the mentorship program. This is my first year in this program, and it's definitely the first time I've ever been formally mentored. So I'm really looking forward to growing and learning through this experience. I signed up to be an ICER mentee primarily to build relationships and to build my network, but also to learn from others that have excelled in their careers and understand some of the driving factors behind why they've made the decisions that they have, and how they've learned to balance the competing demands of life. And so I'd like to, over time, I'd like to leverage the experiences that I've had in living and working in Africa and grow further in my career, hopefully to a position of leadership and be able to have a wider sphere of influence to be able to have an impact in the regions, primarily in developing countries, to just ensure that they have the basic necessities that I discussed earlier. So in the past, and when I've worked in mentorship roles, I was always the mentor. And I've learned that the most successful mentor relationships are the ones that have stemmed where we've been able to find a foundation where there's trust and where there's authenticity. And I think that it's really important to have those in place to be able to create that safe environment, to be able to communicate and to share your experiences with no judgment, and to be able to learn from other people. And so I think in addition to that, I think the other major thing is just being consistent in communication and being committed. I think Michelle had mentioned that earlier. I think in this busy world, sometimes we get so caught up in the things that we have to do, and we don't stay as committed to the relationships that we have. So I think that consistency will also play a significant role in creating that safe environment. So I hope that through this mentorship, I'll just be able to continue to connect with people, to be able to hash out my goals and aspirations and gain some support and feedback. And also just to develop an understanding of what the various avenues are that I could take in my career, and just discover just new ways of thinking, and just to be challenged in the way that I currently do things right now. So I'm extremely excited about what's going to happen over the course of the year. I'm excited to be mentored. So I'm looking forward to this, and I'm very grateful for all of you guys that have taken the time to commit to this organization and commit to the mentees as part of this program. Thank you.
Thank you, Larkus. I appreciate the comments. I am always challenged by mentees and mentors alike when we start talking about backgrounds and we start talking about communication and consistency. And I think that that's so important. Thank you very much. Well, Jocelyn, it's your turn.
Thank you.
Let's go right ahead. I'm listening.
Okay. I think the first thing that I wanted to say, just listening to the challenges Larkus spoke about in her experiences, I do have to say how incredibly lucky and aware I am how lucky that I live here in Canada and don't experience many of those challenges. But certainly, as volunteering as a mentor, very interested in starting to understand more of what the other cultures are struggling with, and be there as that mentoring support system. So thanks for the introduction. As Commissioner Hill said, I'm Jocelyn Fraser. I work with the Nova Scotia Utility and Review Board in Canada, and as a quick background, I'm a chartered professional accountant who worked in public practice for 13 years before coming to the board 5 years ago. I was lucky enough, prior to joining the board, to have fabulous mentors who instilled a no-barrier approach to my career. I did begin my accounting career in a very unconventional manner. I started out with a communications background and eventually gained the support of someone who believed in me. That was really my first mentor. I started out with one of the large international accounting firms in an entry-level administrative position, and I was young, I was naive, but I was really excited to show someone how great I could be. Perhaps a lot of luck, I was assigned to a partner who made his first priority really getting to know and make that personal connection with everybody he worked with. He will truly forever be the mentoring standard that I aspire to. I was encouraged to consider accounting, even though I had nearly no background in it, and as I took it on, I cleared every hurdle and just opened up the doors that I needed to continue. In the end, he encouraged me to pursue opportunities that took me beyond that firm. Through public accounting practice and now with the board, I've seen how an individual can truly thrive with the appropriate support system, as well as how quickly they can falter. No different than hearing tough love from friends or family. A mentor is not there to fill you with false hope, but really, no matter what you're going through, a mentor is there to talk to you and help you find your way, but you have to persevere as a mentee through anything that can feel like a hurdle at any point in time. Speaking of my own personal story, which is what I was asked to bring here, having a couple successful mentoring programs, I remember being near the end of my accounting program, and I took bit of a personal setback. I found myself suddenly in the single mom role with a 3-year-old son, and doing the accounting program, working, 60 to 80 hours a week. I was beginning to, struggling to keep up. I put in for a transfer thinking that if I moved back home where I had a family support system, then, I'd be done my designation, everything would work out. I got the transfer and landed, near family, had the support system, and I think in the first week that I landed there, I was asked to complete yet another designation. So, in my mind, that felt like a bit of a kick at that point in time, but as luck would have it, I fluked into another mentor who herself was a single mom coming through the accounting program. So she was certainly somebody that I needed to hear from at that point in time and see the success story that could be mapped out for someone. I put in the 60-hour, 80-hour work weeks. I raced home for daycare pickup, opening the laptop many nights as I ate dinner with my son, and somehow still found the time to complete the classwork, which somehow I excelled in. I think that my message is really for anyone that is juggling, whether my personal story is going to be a little different than everybody's. Struggling with your file deadlines, communicating these really technical files that we work with in the energy sector, falling asleep on the commuter train, just to know that we've all done it. You just have to find that support network to do it successfully, and I'm really excited to be part of somebody's support network. While I am grateful for the contributions of others and the fabulous mentors I've had, it really comes down to believing in yourself and pursuing your opportunities. The most rewarding aspect of it all came, not even from the professional network a few years ago when my son, who's an adult now, said that he didn't recall any of this juggling that I had to do. What he remembered was that every Wednesday I worked from home and I met him at the bus stop. So it's just finding those little things that help you get there. I have had the opportunity to formally mentor numerous accountants through the professional designation process, and been the informal mentor for a few that here at the board that I consider my peers. Every mentoring relationship will vary. To get the most out of it, you really need to communicate. You get to know each other and explore what you're looking for from the relationship. This depends entirely on where you are, both personally and professionally. Right now, I'm interested in giving back and pursuing new opportunities. I will quickly speak about the board. When I first started here, and we don't still have a formal mentoring program, this ICER program is the only formal one that I've come across. And early on that was okay. I had the contacts that I'd already made, and I was in a learning cycle. Coming from public practice into the regulatory world, it was very different, so I was definitely in a learning cycle. However, a couple years ago I began considering my options here at the board and beyond, and realized that I needed to reach out to acquire a mentor in the energy industry. It truly would be naive of myself to think I already knew everything I would need to know to continue growing in this industry or my career. I had done the executive development assessments and knew what I needed to develop. So what I needed at this stage in my career was someone who did not have my experiences, my background, or my approach. And a quick assessment, I approached one of the members here at the board, and when I asked him, he did ask why him, but stepped up right away. He provides me formal and informal one-on-one feedback, opinions, understanding of areas that I may be struggling in. One of the biggest areas that I struggle in, as I think it was Elaine was saying about the really technical world that we work in, was explaining the complex accounting theory and the potential impacts of accounting policy on the regulated utilities to an audience of lawyers and engineers. Which, as you guys would know, they want that information on the spot, usually in less than 2 sentences before they glaze over and you've lost your audience. I've now become aware I may never clear that particular hurdle, but we all need somebody to tell us to keep trying. So as I was deciding on this program, I really struggled between whether I wanted to be a mentor or a mentee, and I honestly don't think there'll be a day that comes that I won't feel like I could use more feedback or an unbiased opinion or someone to go to with career questions. In the end, I volunteered as a mentor. I know I have a strong support system, and now I'm really hoping to be here to help others find their success story. So, back to Ken. Back to Commissioner Hill.
Well, thank you, Jocelyn, and Ken is fine. Thank you very much. I am amazed. I really am. I mean, I'm speaking from my heart here. We have a fantastic panel. There's been so much wisdom that's already been shared, and now we get to take a look at some questions in just a moment and get some more wisdom. I would like to share a couple of concepts or ideas. One is, if you're a mentee, remember that once the mentor has made the contact, it's up to you. And that's very important. As a mentee, it's up to you because you're going to have to drive yourself. The mentor is not there to push you along or pull you along. The mentor is there to assist you as you drive yourself. And I don't mean that in any negative fashion whatsoever. It's just something to remember. Always keep those challenges ahead of you and see them as great opportunities. You are not limited unless you limit yourself. I love the concept of asking questions. Ask those questions. Do not be afraid to do so. Get to know, speaking to mentees again, get to know your mentors. Get to know your mentor well, and let them also get to know you. I'm a very transparent mentor or mentee, as I have been. What you see is what you get. And when we have conversations, I try to make them as transparent as possible, as honest as possible. And so there's no place for false faces, no place for masks to be placed on when you're in a mentee or mentor relationship. And so both sides need to understand that and go forward with it. Now, one of the good things here, and it's been mentioned a couple of times, are the tools that we have for you, that ICER has for you through WIE. And so you can go to the WIE section of the website. You'll find inspiring stories there. In fact, today, in celebration of International Women's Day, ICER's released a special Women in Energy Stories collection, and I think you're going to enjoy it. I'm getting excited about it, realizing, Michelle, we're just getting started here on the East Coast of the U.S. while you're winding up tonight. But I'm going to be delving into that later on today when I get a few minutes that I can do that. So I'm excited about that. So if you come across interesting things, mentees or mentors, share it with WIE, share it with the Secretariat so that we can make sure that everybody gets involved with it and gets enthused by it. So also I would say be proud that you're a mentee for the mentees. Mentors don't have any pride at all. Okay? I don't want you to be full of pride, but I want the mentees to be proud that they're mentees. It's a special relationship, and you're learning, you're moving forward. It looks good on that vita or resume or whatever you want to call it. It is good for you, and it looks good too. It's the best of all worlds. And so I would say it will help you in advancing your career. So now the questions. I've got one here, and it's, if you will allow me, and then we'll open it up. In 1837, a poet laureate wrote to a young Charlotte Bronte, "Literature cannot be the business of a woman's life, and it ought not to be. The more she's engaged in her proper duties, the less leisure she will have for it, even as an accomplishment and a recreation. To those duties you have not yet been called, and when you are, you will be less eager for celebrity. You will not seek in imagination for excitement." Okay, so how can programs such as the Mentor Program, and particularly male mentors in 2016, overcome some of the institutionalized and cultural challenges faced by women in male-dominated industries? And then the next question that comes with it is, what do mentees expect? Michelle, we throw it to you to start with.
Thanks, Ken. So the concept, I mean, I think, similar to Jocelyn, and I think I heard Elaine as well, have been lucky to have some very good male mentors as part of my career development. So what can they do? Well, the first thing they can do is participate in programs and to share their experience with women to help women pursue their careers. I think that also provides perhaps an example to their organisation and to perhaps other men in their organisations around sorts of behaviours that I think should then be replicated by the broader workforce. So it shows, I think, by them being prepared to say, this is important to me and the organisation is important that women have the opportunity to fully participate to, you know, the extent of their skills and aspirations. I think those sorts of statements that are made by men participating in mentoring programs can be a really important signal in their workplaces, and perhaps is even a broader benefit than the benefit that individual might bring into the relationship they have. So I think it can show leadership. I think it can perhaps be a bit of a pointy stick to point some of their other colleagues around some issues. And I think it also sometimes to just give rise to a conversation, to a question. Why are you participating in these sorts of programs? So it provides an opportunity for a workplace to have a conversation. I think all of those are some of the benefits that male champions and mentors might be able to do to overcome some of the institutionalised and cultural challenges.
Jocelyn, you have something to add?
Sure. Two of my three formal mentors were men, and I actually like the perspective more than I did in having a female mentor, because they challenged me. Why do you think that's a struggle? And those little things of you internalize something so much and you don't just ask the question. When you ask the question, it comes back that it really shouldn't have been a struggle that I was thinking of in the first place. That could be in the individual, right? Like, I know that there's a lot of men that potentially don't think that way, and a lot of cultures where the women aren't yet there in a comfort level of thinking that way. But I think the more that you open up and ask the questions, have the discussions, I had huge success with both of my male mentors, and if anything, they're probably the two that lifted me up the most, and not in doing stuff for me, but just being that real voice of reason.
Elaine or Larkus, either? You have a comment?
I suppose the quote was very interesting. I think there's a number of points. I really appreciate Michelle's point, which is to give men the opportunity to take leadership, and that can be, I suppose, a growing experience for men, but also it can create a great opportunity for women. I also see the point that Sheryl Sandberg often made, which is for women to take the opportunities when they can. So to take the opportunities in your career, to take the initiative as a mentee as part of this program, to be conscious of the fact that sometimes life will bring challenges, and maybe it might mean that women may or may not be absent from work for family reasons at a later stage, depending on their wishes. But the point is that that women have also to take the initiative to be smart and to use the time and to use the context that they have in the present moment to develop as much as possible, to build on their network of contacts, and obviously to take their future seriously as well. And I think that's an important point to make. I mean, I think men can do so much in terms of providing leadership in work and making things easier for women in that respect. But I think ultimately women do have to take control of our own lives and to make decisions that advance us professionally.
Very good, Elaine. Thank you. Larkus, any comment? I'm sorry, I'm not hearing you, Larkus.
I muted myself. My apologies. Okay. So I was saying I actually agree with a lot of what has been said so far. I think the role of the program, as we've all discussed, is to just gain that support as you pursue your career. I think some of the value that having a male mentor could bring is similar to what Jocelyn had mentioned. I think what you had said actually resonated with me quite a bit. I think that one of the challenges maybe sometimes in the way that the differences in the way we think. I think that just being able to just think through or talk to a male mentor to think through some of the ways that they've approached things, and maybe they haven't faced the same barriers that we have, but instead of having to internalize all those things and overthink things, just being able to have that support to just go ahead and just go forward with things anyway. So I hope that made sense. But yeah, I think that that's one of the things that I think that having a male mentor could bring additional insight into.
If I may interject from my perspective, I find that getting the talk right and setting the tone for other male workers is a very important part of a male mentor who is working within this program or another to assist females in their journey. It is amazing to me how attitudes can change simply based upon conversation. And so I'm a great believer in talking the talk properly and then walking the walk as best you can, hopefully in the same situation. And so I see that as very important from the male perspective, that we get the talk right and that we then follow through. And so I think that's part of the importance of it. Let me ask a question. Where are your mentors or mentees? Are they on the same continent with you, or are they on a different continent? Where are they? Any idea? Could you share that, please?
My mentor is in Austria.
All right.
My
Michelle?
mentor.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sorry, Elaine. My mentee is in London.
Okay.
My mentor is in Germany. Sorry.
And my mentee is in Egypt.
All right. And so we see the time zones and the lags and everything else that's going to take place, but that is not a barrier anymore. I mean, it's an impediment at times just because of logistics, but because of technology, it's amazing. I mean, what we can do and the accomplishments you can make. All right, another question. This is for Michelle and Jocelyn. What do you think is the biggest trap that mentors risk falling into? And then what would be the biggest trap for mentees? And then how do you avoid the traps?
I think for me, the area of greatest danger for me as a mentor, and where I stray, is in my willingness to give advice, perhaps a little too early and a little too readily. So I think one of the big challenges of being a mentor is not trying to solve the problems for your mentee. And we all work in regulatory agencies. Our job is to find solutions quickly, efficiently, effectively, and we're all, I imagine, pretty good at it. It's what we do. And it's a real challenge not to bring that skill set, which we have all been employed for and rewarded for, straight into the mentoring relationship. So you have to be really mindful. So I'll move into the what you might do about it part as well, Ken, if you don't mind. So I think you have to come into it being mindful, being self-aware, and to remind your mentees that that's not your role, and to ask them to help you keep yourself honest, to call you to account on that. So for me, that is one of the areas in which I certainly need to do a bit of self-monitoring at time. If my mentee is listening, I'm apologising in advance. And I look forward to the conversations we have where she'll call me up and say, no, don't give me the answer. So for me, that is one of the big risks. And it can be very easy to fall into a manager-staff type relationship, and you have to be really careful not to let it go there, because that's not where it's meant to be.
Jocelyn?
Yeah, I agree with Michelle on that one. The other trap that I probably fall into is just my personality coming out too much. I talk too much. So we really do need to hear from the mentees. I shouldn't be pushing my story. I was asked to do it here today, but I'm not going to talk any more beyond that. I want to hear from the mentee. The trap that I think the mentees fall into is almost the opposite. It's a fear, because in our professional careers, we're drilled to be professional, and talking about your challenges or your questions can feel really uncomfortable. So I think the best way to avoid all of that is just in a communication like that, getting to know one another so that you're comfortable communicating, having trust that the mentor is there for you, and open up and communicate. Tell us what you need and tell us what you don't. So
I thank you very much for your answers to the questions and for your presentations. Our time is fast running out. Thank you for sharing today and for helping us once again say that communication is key. Being honest and transparent is going to be your salvation here as a mentor or a mentee. So Larkus, thank you very much for being with us today. Michelle, thank you. Thank you, Jocelyn, and thank you, Elaine. It's been a pleasure for me to be a part of this dynamic panel. So thank you very much. I remind our folks once again that this webinar has been recorded on audio. It will be available on the WIE website. The ICER Secretariat will be contacting each and every mentor and mentee before the end of April to make sure that you've had your first initial meeting. The onus is on the mentor to set up the first meeting, and then it's up to the mentee after that to schedule the further meetings. We're going to have a second webinar in July is the plan, and they'll be looking for pairs of mentors and mentees to share their experiences. So if you're interested in doing that, make yourself available. Don't forget that there will be a mid-program questionnaire and one again at the end of the program to get feedback on how we can improve the effort in the future. So thanks to everybody who's been with us today, those who volunteered to be mentors and those who volunteered to be mentees. It's going to be an exciting journey, I know. And once again, I'm just reminded of the depth and breadth and width of the knowledge and the wisdom that we have in our WIE group. And I'm glad when somebody says, oh, you're a women's mentor. And I say, no, I'm a mentor in the Women in Energy program, and I'm delighted to be so. And so, thank you very much for your time today. goodbye. Thank you once again for participating and making it better for all of us. Have a wonderful day.